I'm going to be repairing a Mistral Superlight. It's a late 80s board and it has about 14 holes in it, or notable pieces of damage. It's going to be a little bit of a project, but my goal is to use this board in Superlight winds. That'd be 2 to 7 miles an hour. I'm probably going to be using an 11.7 with this board, so I'm going to have plenty of power. So all I need to do is to go fast, light wind range. The modifications I may do to it, and it won't help it to handle more waves, and it won't be easier to get on and off the roof rack. I'm going to do a pre-board weigh-in, so I'm going to weigh myself with the board. Go. And it weighed 194.2 and 166. This board without any, the fins, the actual hardware, just totally stripped down, but it is 28.2 pounds, which is really exciting. So my goal is, it's okay if I increase the weight a little bit because I'm adding extra reinforcement, but I'm going to try to remove material as I increase material. Goal weight is 28.2 pounds.
When you're dealing with fiberglass or carbon, definitely use breathing protection and eye protection, especially with rotating bits. It's always a good thing to be safe.
Here are the 6 damages. I just put a little square of masking tape around so I could kind of sand in. Go. And here are the 7 damaged holes on the bottom. That's a big one. These are going to be super fast. I could maybe even just put some epoxy on because I don't think it's structurally damaged. There's just a little bit of kind of wear and tear there. And this one, I was thinking about sanding, and I think just using a grinding tool just to grind it around.
Nice, let's get started and clean this area up.
I'm going to vacuum to see what I have. The grinding worked pretty well. I have a good foundation for foam buildup. I'm going to sand the surrounding areas and also get kind of a little bevel going in.
Nice, that looks good.
I bought this board from a previous owner. I was intending to do some repairs, never got around to it, and it's just taking up a garage space. But this board has been sitting confirmed 6 months without any water use. And with big holes like this, if there was any water, it would have plenty of time to vent out. And that's why I'm getting a weight of about 35 pounds with all the hardware on, and 28.2 pounds without any of the hardware on, because there's no water in it. So awesome.
This one, I'm just going to grind around the crack a little bit. It's not very bad. It's a pretty regular form of crack I'm used to. In storage, really light. And pretty good. This looks good. Just going to sand it around. This is going to require some grinding.
going to do a real thorough scrape on the inside of the centerboard housing.
Scrape it up really good. And the paint's chipping off. This is definitely not a paint. Go to from the other side.
Denatured alcohol. Heat it up a little bit. Prep for painting or gluing.
Now I'm just cleaning up the rail a little bit.
I found a cool recipe online for Gorilla Glue to make it foam up evenly. Gorilla Glue and vinegar, 4 parts to 2 parts vinegar makes it foam up faster and a thicker foam, and if you add baking soda to the mix, it makes the inside bubbles the same as outside bubbles. So I'm gonna make some of this. It's hard to do drips, so I'm just gonna eyeball it here. And got about that much there. To the vinegar next, otherwise it'll foam up too fast. 4 to 2 or 2 to 1. A little bit more Gorilla Glue in here. There we go. And some baking soda, just a little bit. There we go, that's plenty. Help to smooth out the foam. It's all mixed up. Applying the foam. So make sure it's a nice smooth coating. And I'm going to sand this all down, so I'm not really worried about masking around the edges. It should foam up a little bit over. And I'll probably have to do another coat of foam. I'm not sure how much this will start to foam up, but I'll find out shortly. Only been about 10 minutes and these are looking really good. I just set this one a little bit ago. I did another batch because it's almost out. That one's almost level. And this is way over level. This is awesome. So this is working really well. I'm gonna flip the board and do the other side. As you're working with Gorilla Glue, just make sure you have on already really dirty clothes that you're willing to get dirty, because this stuff is super sticky and it's not gonna come off easy. It's waterproof stuff. It's awesome. This one here. I might just not be mixing up enough Gorilla Glue. It cures so quick, I don't want to do too much. This is working really well for these smaller spots. I'm going to use 80 grit to sand down the foam. That works, but I'm going to go to 40 grit. Nice, 40 works great.
I switched to 80 grit for the rail.
I'm going to be using a 5-to-1 ratio, and I'm trying super pigment. It's a Tap Plastics white pigment, because a lot of the spots are going to be painted. Some of the spots that have holes, I just think a little bit of epoxy is going to be fine. Others, 1 layer of fiberglass should be fine. And the big stuff, I think 2 layers of fiberglass will be okay. I don't think I need to do 3 or 4 layers of fiberglass. Bubbling up. Before I flipped it, I put wax paper on there when it was upright and smoothed out the actual resin. I think there'll be less sanding afterwards onto the top. Top deck, I did 2 coats each, and I'm not going to use wax paper because I actually want any extra traction I can get. Everything's patched up. I also did a nice coat along the rails, on the inside, anywhere that was a nick. The Superlight has cured overnight and the repairs look solid. Next up is to test for leaks. So I'm going to let the board sit in the sun for an hour, spray it with a soapy water mix. If there are any cracks, they will bubble. Nice, the board has been sitting in the sun for an hour. I have a little spray bottle here, and I'm just gonna go nice and slow, make sure everything's sprayed. And I'm looking for extra bubbles. Anything that's foaming up. I'm gonna go really slow, make sure it's fully out there, and just go over every square inch slowly. I found the first one. Here we go. Go here, and then we can see right there is where the bubbles are forming. I can see a tiny little hole, the pinhole there, so it sticks. I don't think this warrants an actual fiberglass covering. I will go ahead and coat this whole area with a nice thin coat of resin epoxy. This is an area where I thought would be highly likely that there would be bubbles coming out of. It's good, I don't have to put any more glue. And this whole area in here was missing paint, so I did do a nice thorough coat, and I kind of put a little of epoxy in there, but I don't think this was leaking beforehand. This area is good to go. And for the 4 screw holes on the bottom, these 3 look good, but this one here is bubbling. 2 spots on the bottom of the board that need a quick touch-up of glue. 2 spots that have leaks on the top. And so there's additional bubbles coming out, so that one needs to be done. And this one is a small leak, but the bubbles, you can see them coming out right there. This is a repair I did. 2 coats of fiberglass, and I probably just didn't go far enough around. So this gives a reminder, go a little further wider than the damaged area, because there's just a little area where the fibers of the glass are going straight, and there's just enough distance to make it so there's not a complete seal. This spot I must have missed, and it didn't get painted, but it isn't leaking at all. And I just marked it because, like, this is the only spot that didn't get a good coating over, so I'm just going to do this spot. The best thing to do, if you know your board has damage, dry it out, get all the water out of there, patch those up, look very carefully to see anything small, and then after it's completely cured and finished and all the repairs have been done, then do this process to see if there's any pinholes that you may have missed, because it's so much better. I could use this board for years without doing any more repairs to it, and it could be leaking and getting heavier every session I have, where if I didn't do this I wouldn't know. And I might actually do this spray process once a year on this board just to make sure no future holes have opened up and I can easily take care of this. Even though it was already done, I'm going to just sand the surrounding area and use denatured alcohol on all the spots. Make sure any extra epoxy I put around won't peel up. For the holes, I'm going to use Gorilla Glue. I'm going to use 4 parts Gorilla Glue, 2 parts vinegar, and 1 part baking soda to give a nice quick drying foamy solution. It should foam up the entire hole, but also be very easy to drill, and I might be able to even put the screw back in self-tapping. And I want to make sure it foams down rather than up and out. So in order to help that along, I'm going to just put a piece of masking tape on the hole. For the epoxy, I'm going 10, the hardener is 2, and the pigment is 1. A little further out. Check up with that in a bit. From this angle, you can kind of see the sliver right there, and that's where the hole is. So it just needs a little bit more epoxy in that spot. Just right there. And it looks like in this one there's a bunch of other spots that are kind of thin. Oh, and that's bubbling. I could have waited longer for this one, even though it's in the shade and it's been sitting here for a little bit. So I will try to come back to that as this epoxy is getting harder. And even though it's in the shade and the board is not warm at all, the board is cool to the touch. Outside the temperature is increasing, and the temperature in the board is slowly increasing from what it was this morning, or neutral temperature. It is still bubbling right here, so I'm going to try to put... And I'm going to try putting masking tape on here. Pressure too. That's nice. Glue is fully cured. And let's see what it looks like. It's nice and smooth and sealed. Let's see how the Gorilla Glue, vinegar, and baking soda turned out. It's pretty big holes as far as the foam has gone, but I think it'll be good enough to seal out the small leak. I've got 40 grit. Don't need to over sand, just to clean it up enough for the hardware. In this spot there's a pretty big nick out of this chunk, so I just put a little piece of tape there to kind of fill in the area, otherwise the glue would have just dripped down. And I'm just taking 80 grit here to smooth it out, make it so it doesn't have any hydrodynamic drag. Nice. It doesn't look super fancy, it's smooth, and the water will be very happy flowing over that. Any texture on the top is going to be great because this is so slippery smooth. There are a couple sharp spots right there where it could actually cut me if yeah, that's actually quite sharp. So if my skin caught it wrong and my foot caught it wrong, it could make a little cut. So what I'm going to do for all these repairs is I'm just going to go around just sanding spots that are like sharp. So this is 80 grit, and this will definitely smooth out. And there's another sharp spot right there. Nice. This one's done. Before I put a full grip coating down, because the top, other than the damages, there's a lot of material here. It's totally watertight, it is good, but this is ridiculously slippery. So first I'm going to try 80 grit by hand, not by orbital sander, because the orbital sander will be very smooth, or by hand back and forth, it should create bigger grooves. So I don't want to take too long on this, but if I go like this, just a cross pattern, and repeat these results, I can see there is more grip there. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to take 40 grit, go over here. I'm going to do less. I don't want to go into the coating too much. That feels really good. That is pretty grippy. I think my feet with the boots will stick to this. So I'm going to do 40 grit over the whole thing, just like this. And you see cross pattern. Mask on.
Yeah, just makes sense as I go on.
Okay, board sanding is done. Before I reassemble the hardware, I'm going to measure the weight difference. And I have a weight of 199.4 subtracted by my weight of 169. So that is a weight difference of 30.4 pounds. I don't think I added that much weight to the board. So unfortunately my weighing technique, either the scale is not accurate enough or where I'm placing my weight on the scale isn't accurate enough. There's a big possibility if I step here compared to here, it could be different. So that theoretically means I added 2.2 pounds of weight to the board, which I don't think is the case. I think my weighing system is off. But at least the original weight is supposed to be 35 pounds, and I know it's not waterlogged or heavy, and even after repairs it's underneath the weight. So I'm not sure if this weighing is inaccurate or the other weighing is inaccurate, but I think I'm going to get a more accurate weighing system, either by hanging it on a pulley system or getting a more accurate weigh system. So it's kind of nice to know a very precise, accurate weight of boards. I'm going to attempt to repair this in Gorilla Glue and water will work great. The cool thing with Gorilla Glue and water is you can use as much water as you possibly want. Just mix it up and you can dump off the remaining water. There goes the water. I'm going to put it on the rubber piece and it should have plenty of room to expand. I'll put it on the white plastic also so that it kind of meet in the center. This is great. It's foaming up really fast. All taped down and it's still coming out the sides. That's great. So it should fully saturate it. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this surface. It's just a little rough. I don't want to sharpen up the trailing edge just for some speed tuning. So I'm going to use 120 grit.
some hand sanding.
Here we go. This is good for now. Nothing too crazy at this point. It's not sharp at the edge, but it's much smoother, very clean release, and it's cleaned up around the tip. It's kind of rough down here. So there's nothing unusual, just nice and smooth. There are some nicks at the back fin. The rest of the fin feels pretty good. So just a quick. Back to a point where it'll move through the water more efficiently. Putting the center board assembly back in. Screwing these 6 screws in. This is the foam one with the Gorilla Glue. And that's going down nicely. Nice. Putting in the bottom center board assembly. The bottom center board assembly is in. This is the Mistral Superlight mass base. All my stuff uses US base, and I like the mechanical joint because it's really easy to attach and detach. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to use some PB Blaster on these 2 pieces to make it easier. Eye protection is always a good idea. Let that sit for 5 minutes. For the Mistral Superlight, I'll first try vice grips. See if that works before going and... Oh, no way! I actually did not think that was going to work. That's coming out nicely. Pin is ready to use. I don't have a thin enough socket to reach inside, so I'm going to try to jam it up with something like a screwdriver and an Allen wrench to see if I can get it up that way. Yeah, probably not. Tried a few things, this isn't working out. I don't really want to destroy this end piece because there might be a board that needs this. So many things have not worked, so I'm going to get the hole a little bit more open. I don't want to break this. What I ended up doing is sanding the end of this 13mm bit, and that worked. This is almost all the way out, and yeah, nice little modification. That's all needed. This screw isn't coming out, so I'm just going to grind in a ring right around these threads here, so it'll be just like the stock piece. I've got a nice deep groove. I also sanded this washer down, and it's a nice, push it down all the way and rotate smoothly. Tried out the freshly repaired Mistral Superlight for the first time. The things I like about it, I like how the front, it starts to split the water really close to the front without much rock in the front. It creates a longer water line. In the back, it has a little bit of tail kick, which helps it have a nice smooth release. When I'm going super slow, it definitely, the back of the tail is up out of the water, so there's maybe a tiny bit of drag, but assuming I get as little as 3-4 miles per hour board speed, it has a nice smoother release, really good. I actually like this stock notch mass track system. In the front, it worked well with my 11.7. The center board worked really well, no complaints, really happy about that. The stock fin didn't have much hold, and that's one thing too. That's probably, if I do start modifying this board, that's the first thing I'm gonna do. And just see right here, it just has a rough exit. It's not even sharp right there, and that's so it can easily go back and forth, which is a cool feature, but the angle of this and just this aspect, it's not a very high performance fin. So for me to put a deep tunnel fin box in here, maybe a tiny bit more forward, but that might be something that would increase performance in light wind, and I could get a 70 centimeter fin, 50 centimeter slalom fin, and that would probably help overall performance. But I definitely do this before I mess with the center board or the mass track, so that's number 1 on my list. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and share, and if you have any questions, let me know.